Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're anything like me, you're torn over who to romance in Baldur's Gate 3, but also, over the past few weeks, you've seen a bunch of clips from this podcast, with a host who you've never heard of before interviewing huge celebrities like Drake, Lil Yachty, Shaq, Charlie Puth, people who anyone with a podcast would love to have on their show. I can understand how Ninja got Matthew McConaughey for his podcast, and I've never felt like two people had less in common. But who the hell is this? It's Bobbi Althoff. I would have known if I looked at my phone for 2 seconds. Her name's right there. It's right there. I apologize. That's on me. Who the hell is Bobbi Althoff? It's a good thing I'll tell you. Bobbi Althoff is an influencer, a podcaster, a social media sensation, and a loving mother of two. She started out as, I don't want to say a mommy blogger, that seems reductive, and she doesn't have a blog. She's a TikTok. While she was mommy blogger adjacent, her videos always had a comedic spin. She lovingly refers to her two children as Richard and Concrete, which is funny and also means that millions of strangers online don't know some personal information about her kids. Her TikTok used to be centered around her pregnancy. She was actually pregnant twice. That's how she got her two kids. But Bobbi says she was a parody of a mommy vlogger, and I'll let you decide whether or not that's true. Again, her videos definitely bend comedic, but like, what is this parodying? That's all you get. Or this.
Nothing stresses me out quite like opening the refrigerator and realizing I need to go to the grocery store. I knew having two kids would be hard, but I had no idea it would be this hard. Thankfully, by becoming a Walmart Plus member, I get free delivery to my door with no markups. No more spending 30 minutes strapping my kids into car seats, only for my toddler to throw a tantrum 3 items into my grocery list because her socks are the wrong shade of purple and her doll will not sit at the perfect 90-degree angle in its cart. Instead, I get to enjoy her tantrums from the comfort of our home.
Again, her videos bend comedic. Some of them are just like personal revelations, and that's fine. Good for you. Proud of you. Hey, that's good for you. Comedy, yes. Parody, I don't know. But that's just semantics. She was incredibly successful and amassed more than 3 million followers by the end of 2022. It's a little tough to see all that rise because she's deleted at least 389 videos from her page. I say at least because when you're looking at videos added or removed with Social Blade, you can only see the net. I believe we have an image. She removed a lot of them because they have personal information about her family in them. And I'm pissed. I wish she would have left them all up. Now that the strikes are ending, I've been working on my impressions for SNL. That was my normal person on the internet. There still are a bunch of videos from both during and directly after her most recent pregnancy when she was still doing the mommy vlogger thing. Then everything changed in April when Bobbi saw a video from Jenna Palek about how doing a podcast had paid all of her bills. And so then Bobbi wanted to start a podcast of her own. And then she did. And that is actually what I'm interested in talking about today. The celebrity podcast that skyrocketed into the public eye wherein she plays a character. As interested as I am in which prenatal vitamins to buy, and boy am I interested, this is actually a little more my speed. So she launches her podcast, The Really Good Podcast. Shout out to Curtis Connor. And the bio reads, a master interviewer with weeks of experience interviewing celebrities, Bobbi asks the questions that no one wants to know the answers to. Her toddler called The Really Good Podcast the most listened to podcast in the world, and several of her videos have more than 900 views. It's a comedy podcast where every week Bobbi, in character, interviews a celebrity and asks them questions wavering from apathetic to actively antagonizing. Here's a clip.
Hey!
Hi?
That's the same joke as earlier.
Yeah, but I actually have the prop this time.
Oh, so now you're bragging about being a props comic?
Yeah, that's a good point. You're right. Hey guys, I really didn't want to be making this video, but I feel like I needed to say something. I'd like to apologize for the recent allegations against me. I made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment. I should have known better than to be an online personality and make the same joke multiple times. Luckily, faking a YouTube apology is something completely original. No one's done it before, so I'm in the clear there, but I will do better. and I'm Fun fact, every YouTuber who's about to record an apology yells at their dog for a full 30 minutes beforehand, just so that they can kind of start to feel bad, because you can't be mean to a person, but you can be mean to a dog. Anyway, here's a clip from the podcast.
What are you wearing today? Did you cut your shirt yourself?
You think I cut this myself?
It looks like you could have, perhaps.
No, I didn't cut this myself.
Did you spend a lot of money for someone else to cut that?
I wouldn't say a lot of money. It's a t-shirt.
How much? I'll be the judge of that.
I don't know, like $100.
That's a lot of money for a t-shirt that looks like you could have cut it yourself.
You start to get the vibe. It's in the same vein as Between Two Ferns, except Bobby has said that the entire thing is unscripted. There's no prep, and that's the fun of it. I think that's why celebrities are down to do it. They know it's a character, and we just wing it. I imagine that it's fun for celebrities because it's a novel experience, and it's next to impossible for you to come out of an interview like this looking like an asshole. Even if they do snap at Bobby a bit, she's been poking and prodding them and doing other things that they do to cattle for nearly an hour. Any retort from the celebrity is going to seem like a bit of banter. And that's the bread and butter of the show. This seems like the most engineered for TikTok clips podcast of all time, because out of context, 1 minute of a celebrity awkwardly giggling and trying to be a little earnest while the interviewer is ostensibly harassing them makes for a good clip. The people who know what the show is and like Bobby's sense of humor get to see a little snippet of a thing that they like, and the people who don't know get to see a very recognizable public figure try and deal with a host who is a nuisance. It gets a little dicier when you're listening to an hour-long episode. This is why, for me, Chicken Shop Date works more than Bobby's podcast does. Obviously, there are going to be comparisons between the two. They're both celebrity interview shows shot in unlikely locations where the woman hosting them asks off-color or awkward questions, some a little romantic, but where Chicken Shop Date is breezy and sharp and leaves in only the best bits, the really good podcast drags because it's a full-length podcast. Not to sound really cool, but I've seen a lot of improv shows, and the really good podcast feels like a long-form scene where one partner's trying to move things along and the other one is denying everything.
No one wanted to dance with me.
Oh.
But I always loved listening to the
That's
song.
really sad. Do you want to talk more about that?
I was never really sad about it. I just was chilling with the other 13-year-old friends of mine that also weren't dancing by the soda machine and listening to Stick With You by the Pussycat Dolls in 2005.
Wow. It's very descriptive. Your couch is kind of loud.
That's why there's so much silence in the show. The conversation can't progress because Bobby is constantly hitting on the brakes. All right, let's talk about Drake. The 4th episode of Bobby's podcast was with Drake. The 4th one. And I'm going to call him Drake because I think it's really funny when news articles refer to him as all of his different nicknames. You can just call him Drake. That's fine. It went massively viral because it's Drake, the guy with 77 million monthly listeners on Spotify. People are interested in what he's doing. And the podcast was shot with the two of them in bed together, which led to a lot of speculation about whether they had hooked up and Bobby had left her husband because he's a boy and she's a girl. And that means that they're kissing. She asks some flirty questions, he gives some flirty answers, but it's Drake. Not to paint him with too broad a brush, but subtlety's not this man's forte, I'd say. So they do the interview. It blows up. People think they're sleeping together. She posts a TikTok at his concert where she's still doing the character. People eat that up. And then they unfollow each other. The podcast episode gets deleted. All the clips get pulled from TikTok. So people assume there's some sort of falling out, which means more people are talking about it, which means that more attention is brought and more people want to see this episode of the podcast that has disappeared. It was a great PR move to get Drake, and it was an even better one to delete the episode with Drake. Genius! And once you've had a celebrity of that caliber on your podcast, you can get other celebrities to come on your show pretty easily. There's not a whole lot that Charlie Puth is gonna say no to that Drake said yes to. Another reason for Bobbi's blow up is the fact that she was an unknown quantity just a few months ago, and now she's interviewing A-list celebrities. People often assume she's an industry plant, or because her husband is a tech executive, he's financing this whole thing, and they do seem pretty financially well off. I mean, she's able to pay to fly and see all of these different celebrities in different places, something that most people just starting a show do not have the funds to do. She also had more than 3 million followers on TikTok and a few 100,000 on Instagram. And it's easy to see the snowball where one celebrity tells another one about it, and then somebody sees a clip from the show and they want to be on it, because that's exactly what happened. She paid people to get celebrities on her show, and then Drake saw a clip from it, she DM'd him, he agreed to be on. Sorry, one other thing I forgot to mention during the Drake stuff. Dave Portnoy, the patron saint of making the internet a worse place, asked her if she and Drake had slept together because he's a boy and she's a girl. And she said, I'm not saying anything publicly, but off the record, no, we didn't. It was an interview, a thing to further both of our careers. And then he talked about asking her on a podcast, and they edited the clip of it to make it look like she said something more salacious than she actually did.
Sylvana's like, I heard that Bobbi slept with Drake and is getting divorced. So I asked her. I DM'd Bobbi.
What? You asked her, did you sleep with Drake and are you getting a divorce?
Yeah. She's like, I'm not commenting on that publicly. Is like, I heard that Bobbi slept with Drake and is getting divorced. So I asked her. I DM'd Bobbi.
What? You asked her, did you sleep with Drake and are you getting a divorce?
Yeah. She's like, I'm not commenting on that publicly, but that's not true.
But yeah, once you've had one big interview, it's all upside from there. After less than a dozen episodes, Bobbi was on the Today Show and on a Barstool podcast, and interviewed by Cosmo, and invited to a variety party, and has a 15-person team around her, and I understand why people think she's a plant. She also, again, has stated that she wanted to start this podcast to pay her bills. That sounds pretty industry plant to me. I think people just forget that the internet is a big place, and a few million followers, especially on TikTok, does not mean the same thing now that it did even 5 years ago. And then people talking about how she's a plant and it's weird how she got so big so fast means that more people are seeing discourse about how it's weird that she got so big so fast, that they see the podcast they hadn't seen and they're like, it is weird that she's so big so fast. And it's just a self-fulfilling thing that keeps her growing her audience. A third part of the blow up is how much mainstream appeal and marketability this show has. Bobbi is almost a blank slate who gets to ask questions that wouldn't normally be part of an interview and gets to cosplay as subversive while actually being an incredibly safe thing for any celebrity to do. She's not going to ask any actually tough questions, which I think is part of the bit, because self-serious podcasts like this also do not ask any tough questions. That's part of why celebrities like going on podcasts. And you know how I know I'm right? Bobbi even said this. It's not a real interview. I'm not trying to get hard-hitting information about you. I'm not trying to uncover anything. It's just a conversation. It's really a parody of a good interview. Now, I wouldn't call the shows that she's parodying here good interviews, but to each their own. A mainstream podcast that is light fluff for celebrities is nothing new. And even with Bobbi's meteoric rise, if that's all this was, I wouldn't be talking about it. What surprises me is how passionately people feel about the show, both ways. Obviously, the reception to the show has been largely positive. Otherwise, it would have fizzled out and died by now. Lots of, I need more of this. This is so funny. This is the best podcast I've ever seen. Which doesn't seem like that high of a bar because most people just listen to podcasts. And that's well and good. But there's also an incredibly vocal group of people who think that this woman and her show are an affront to God. And this isn't just the normal internet thing of people being mean and saying you suck. There's that. There's also legitimate criticism of Bobbi and her podcast. And then there's a Staten Island-sized pile of shit being thrown at her. Or as most people call a Staten Island-sized pile of shit, Staten Island. Here's what I mean. Bobbi announced that she's doing some live shows in LA and on the East Coast with Funny Marco, who was a guest on her podcast, one of her most popular episodes. I'm assuming they're not going to just do live episodes of the podcast, because it would be weird to have a different celebrity every week, but then also have 7 episodes with one person. Maybe they'll do another one later on, but not quite yet. Which all leads to the question, what will these live shows be? There's no additional information on the website, but they're both comedians. So maybe they're going to be doing stand-up. Maybe they're working on writing some bits to do together. Maybe it will be an episode of the podcast. And I'm just wrong. I don't know. But what I do know is that people in the comments cannot stand that this is happening in the first place. Why would people go see this? I don't think they're genuinely asking. I don't think they're wondering what sparks interest in this. I think they're just trying to diss the people that want to go. Rather chew on aluminum foil. I pray on your downfall every night. 77 likes. Elite levels of being a hater. No one on the internet likes you. They said to someone with several million online followers. Sort of like when you say, no one watches Young Sheldon. People do. That's why they never average below 9 million viewers an episode. And I'll say it, Bobby's show is better than Young Sheldon. Oh, hold on. If I want to get the pull quote, let me put the name of the podcast. And I'll say it, the Really Good Podcast is better than Young Sheldon. So Bobby, if you want to use that, that seems like the exact kind of thing you would want to put in your bio. She already ruined her career. That's right. Bobby's career is in shambles right now. Do us all a favor and fall asleep behind the wheel. I think you should die because you have a podcast I don't like and a live show I won't attend. At least I certainly hope that these people won't show up to the shows. And then on other posts, there's the usual out-of-pocket comments and misogyny that affects every woman who dares to exist on the internet. I feel like she has an eating disorder. You built like a veggie straw. I'd do it. 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 Why does it look like her feet are yellow? No, I see it. And then there's the third group of people who don't understand that she's playing a character. This is all a bit. And I can't help them. I mean, beyond, there's nothing I can do. They'll figure it out eventually. I think the podcast will continue to do well for the foreseeable future until either Bobby or the audience decide that the bit is kind of stale, or both. It is funny that now that the show's getting sponsors, she almost entirely drops the character during the ad reads to make sure she gets those talking points out.
But I knew that I had to work with SeatGeek after I did an episode with Drake because I heard that he does concerts or tours, and I'm really excited to go see him perform. When I was looking online for the tickets, I just made sure that I went to the green dot, not the red dot, because green means cheap. SeatGeek is the #1 ticketing app.
I don't really have much else to say about the show, because like the show is kind of nothing. Bobby's not a good interviewer, but that's on purpose. The show doesn't lead to good interviews, but that's on purpose. So you're left with some good clips, and that's about it. I guess I'm just surprised that other people are surprised that a conventionally attractive white woman with millions of followers can get even more millions of followers pretty quickly. One last thing. In the Cosmopolitan interview, one of the pictures in the photo shoot is of Bobby holding a copy of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Now, Bobby's just a little older than me, so she's on that millennial Gen Z cusp, which means that Harry Potter was probably very important to her childhood. It was for me, it was for a lot of my friends. Given J.K. Rowling's current beliefs standing in popular culture, it is a little weird. It's a choice. I'm not calling Bobby a TERF. I'm not even trying to say that I'm not calling Bobby a TERF while actually calling Bobby a TERF. If I wanted to, I would. What I am saying is that it's a choice. Seems like an unnecessary one. There's a lot of better books out there, especially if you're an adult, but that's coming from me, Harry James, 11 hours of screen time a day Miller. Thanks so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, and you wouldn't mind leaving a like or subscribing, I would really appreciate that. The camera battery is about to die. It's getting to be cooler in my room. I'm wearing a sweater, which means that hopefully I'll be streaming on Twitch again soon. So be on the lookout for that. I've got one video for October already planned. It's a fun Halloween video. Prince Pete Davidson's probably going to be in November. Okay, it's 1 a.m. I have to go pee. My camera battery is about to die. So thanks again for watching this video. It does mean a lot to me. I'm just a little rushed right now. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Yeah, let me get low in the frame to be short like Bobby. BetterHelp has paid to be in this video. Why are you sad? Stop it. Don't do self-harm. It's gross.